And hello everyone, and welcome to my new second channel where I rank things, just random shit that I've watched or enjoyed. We're going to start off with the Thomas and Friends specials because my list has changed and I figure it's a good way to get the trained people in. As I'm always going to say, if your list is different to mine and you don't like that, then good. I hope it really rattles your cage, really puts a bee in your bonnet. And then if you agree with everything that I say on this list, then get your own opinions. Maybe. Stop following what everyone else is doing and be your own person. I'm not including Wubba, that Big World Big Adventures movie. That's down at the bottom. If there was a rank below 14th that I could put it, it would go there. I'm also not including anything from All Engines Go. I'm not including any of those special episodes from that Wubba age of the show. Yeah, I'm not doing any of that. I'm just doing the core 13 because those are the ones I know, and I don't want to really stray from that and talk about things that I don't like. Speaking of things I don't like, number 13, Misty Island Rescue. It's still the worst film. I think it's very much agreed. There's not a lot you could agree on within the Thomas and Friends community space. I think a lot of people agree that this is the worst. It has rhyming. All the characters are somehow unlikable, aside from maybe Whiff, possibly. I don't know. He's the only one that I think I can't pick a problem with. There's some bonkers shit on the island, like a shake bridge and some weird machines that just throw logs and do random shit. The new characters that are introduced, they barely get anything to do. I mean, the Logging Locos get a lot to do, but I'm talking Captain, stuff like that. He doesn't really get anything to do. I like a lot of the concepts and the things that this thing brings forward in terms of that would be a good idea for a special, but after the concept part of everything is just bastardized, and yeah, it's not really that enjoyable. What a hateful movie. I can't lie, it is a guilty pleasure. I do just hate watching it. Maybe that should move it up, but I think just out of respect for everyone watching this video, it should stay in 13th. I'm not going to do that to you. I'm not going to bullshit you guys. In number 12, The Great Race. Yeah, this is a good movie, mate. Wow, is it? I don't even think it's a good movie. I was going to say it's a good movie, but it's not a good Thomas movie. I'm not even sure it's a good movie. We spend 2/3 of the plot trying to get to what the plot's about, which is the Great Railway Show, and then barely any time is spent on it. I would have loved to seen more sort of depth with those parts of the narrative, the railway show itself, as opposed to Thomas having some sort of crisis over the fact that he's not going to be a part of it for once. Also, I think this special holds the record for the most amount of new characters introduced in one sort of thing, because we have so many. We have Raoul, Ashima, Yong Bao, the Indian one that wins the best decoration, Axel, Vinny, Frida. Did I say Ivan? Because Ivan's in there. There's so many that, I can't even name them all. The guy that wins the actual race, Etienne, is that his name? Oh, I can't remember. So you've got all these underdeveloped new characters that you just have now, and nothing for them to do, really. So you've just wasted a bunch of money animating it in a bunch of models. This could have been so much better if it was so much smaller, and there was such a smaller cast. And the railway show maybe was contained to Sodor, and it was just a bunch of the strongest Sodor engines and the fastest Sodor engines and the Shuntery engines, and everyone gets something to do. That would have been so much better, but no, we didn't get that, and I'm kind of gutted. I will say I do like the musical aspect. I think all of the songs land for me in some way or another. And Thomas and Ashima's dynamic, it's really what carries this film through. There's nothing else that's really much of a pull apart from the songs, but even then, a lot of these films have songs, so it's not really a unique selling point. The only unique selling point is this dynamic. And I'm glad it's there, and I'm glad we get it. But is it worth 60 minutes of whatever this is? A Diesel having a B-plot scheming to get to the railway show? I don't think so. Not for me, personally. In number 11, Day of the Diesels. Now, this one has moved one spot higher, and I genuinely just think that's down to nostalgia. I really have a lot of love for this one, just because it's a film that I grew up watching. So it is a bit skewed and it is a bit unfair, but I really like this one. I don't know. Objectively, it's ass. Like, the steamy diesel analogy is terrible, and the cast is unlikable. The narrative is confusing at times, especially when Percy's like trying to save everything. So he's like at the steelworks, and then he goes somewhere else, and then he goes back, and then he goes to the diesel works, and then he goes somewhere else, and then he goes back. And I just like, it's very hard to keep track at certain points. Pun intended. It wasn't, but like, just pretend it was. Yeah, I think the only thing that like really objectively sort of saves this one is the fact that like Percy's the protagonist. I feel like that's a very unique part of this, and I feel like that's what makes this possibly more enjoyable than The Great Race for me, as well as the diesel works itself. I think it's a great location. I think where they put it is fucking weird. It's just in the middle of like a clearing in the middle of nowhere with nothing around it. It's just like a grey sort of like nothing space that's just full of dead space. I don't know what the fuck's going on with that. Yeah, so it's not great. I would border on saying terrible, but I'm not going to, because I don't personally think it is. In number 10, Calling All Engines. It's filled with bad learning sequences that like no one wants to watch. The narrative is a bit and it's very slow and very menial, and there's no real like sense of urgency with anything. I feel like even the storm scene could have been better in terms of like how it was edited, but everything's very much like made to be very slow and explainy, and Thomas went to get Adderall medication for his mumps. I don't know. But yeah, again, I think the thing that bumps this one up is like the storm sequence, as I mentioned earlier. I think it's one of the best sequences in the film. I think it's one of the best sequences throughout all of like seasons 8 through 12. And there's also that like weird nightmare sequence of like Percy's on a roller coaster for no reason. Gordon is a playhouse now, like a jungle gym. Edward's a scarecrow, and James is like a funfair attraction. All right, it's kind of funny. I'll give it that. Like I quite find that funny. So yeah, sure. I do definitely feel like this is one of the most forgettable films in the bunch, and for good reason. As I said, it's very slow, it's very monotonous, it's very tedious. I don't think it's really that enjoyable, aside from the sequences I mentioned. So yeah, number 10's a good spot for this, I think. Number 9 is King of the Railway. I still have a problem with the fact that this film is 60 minutes long, probably not even that. It has 4 plot lines to deal with and wrap up, some of which aren't even really wrapped up that well. There's like the mystery of the crown, Stephen trying to find a job, Gordon versus Spencer, and then the other thing. What was the other thing? Oh, like the castle itself, yeah, being built. It does a lot, and I'm not sure anything is very much like focused on that well, to be honest. The Stephen bit and the crown, yeah, because they kind of merge into one by the end, but like the Gordon and Spencer racy thing doesn't really get cleared. It gets cleared up in the credit sequence, which I feel is a bit lazy, because it's just them racing and we never even find out who wins. So what the fuck was the point of any of that? We could have spent that time developing characters like Millie, who barely get anything, or like actually developing Connor and Caitlin as characters, but we didn't, because we had to do racy race for some reason. Yeah, and then the construction of the castle just kind of gets done in the middle of the plot, and it's not really like a thing. And the Earl turns around and is like, oh, it's getting open for the public, surprised, as if that's like news to any of us. Like, why else would you be rebuilding it? No duh. This one is enjoyable. It does have enjoyable moments. It brings back fun characters like Jack the Front Loader. It's not all bad. It ties in with Railway series lore. Like, I'm not going to shit on this too much, but I do think it's very far from being what I would consider a very good movie. So it's like it right in the middle. It has issues that bring it a lot down, but some things that bring it a lot up. So it's kind of in this like weird middle area. In number 8, I believe it is, it's Tale of the Brave. Now this is a very big jump from last time, where Tale of the Brave was in like 3rd or some shit, and now it's here. And that's because, quite simply, I think I was bullshitting myself last time. I think this film is very objectively good, don't get me wrong, but I feel it fails to stand out in any meaningful way, apart from the fact that Thomas, Percy and James are all main characters. The dinosaur shit's boring. Percy's like fears and James tormenting him. Been done before, kind of, in The Phantom Express, so I'm not really in love with that, because The Phantom Express was a very bad episode. And then the Gator stuff is nice. I like Gator as a character, and I like his dynamic with Percy. it's the only thing that's keeping this from like being a lot lower, because everything else is very unmemorable, very unremarkable. The China clay pits are reintroduced, and that's fine, and then you get like Marion and Timothy, but they don't really, again, have a lot to do in this film. It feels more like a Gator film, and then they're just there for along for the ride, which I don't really like. I feel like if you're going to introduce characters, then you've got to like bump them up and not just like fall back on like, oh, we'll just like develop them in like a series 18 episode. Do it now. You may as well. You've introduced them. What's you stopping them from like introducing them in the series 18 episode anyway? I just hit my elbow. That hurt. Yeah, I think this one kind of, it had big ideas and it had big promise, and to a certain extent it delivers it, but like a lot of it is just like, no, not for me. Tale of the Brave's fine. If someone ever came over and was like, well, let's watch that one, sure, we'll do it, but I'm not really like going out of my way for it, if that makes sense. In number 7 is Journey Beyond Sodor. Now, like The Great Race, this doesn't really like feel like a Thomas movie, which is understandable because they're the two specials that are like the latest in the timeline. But yeah, Journey Beyond Sodor just, it's not really a Thomas film, is it? It's just kind of like a generic kids film that just happens to have a blue steam train with a number 1 on its side. Like, it's not engaging. It's not like really trainy in that way. Like, there's nothing about it that's like unique for a train, I suppose, would be the thing in terms of narrative and character development and all of that. Saying that, I do think Thomas's character development is quite apt for this film, because it's all about like, oh, I want to be free and explore the world, and then it turns into, oh, never mind, I want to go home. So, but then again, that's not really like a unique thing for like Thomas. That's just kind of, you could put any character in that and they'd fit, really. Not from Thomas, I just mean any generic kids film character, like, I don't know, Bob the Builder. Lofty could do that. Lofty and Friends, Journey Beyond. Where did they live in Bob the Builder? I think the songs are catchy, I think the new characters are all fun in their own ways, but again, it just doesn't feel like Thomas to me. It feels just like a generic kids film, which, you know, when we're watching a generic kids film, I would probably put this higher, but we're not. We're watching Thomas, and it doesn't feel that way. So, also, some of the animation, not great. I'm not in love with it. Like, it feels very unfinished, very flat in areas. And I feel like, aside from like the steel works or whatever it's called, like the lava works, it's not the lava works. Aside from the steelworks, nothing feels really that like standoutish to me. There's like a quayside with Beresford the Crane on it. There's like the middle of the woods where the experimentals hang out. There's no fun new areas that are really like that interesting, I would say, apart from the steelworks, which even then I feel like it could have been a bit better as a set, and I think it could have been way more interesting. I like the villains. The villains are fun. They're very hammy. They're very like musical sort of villains, I would say. Very over dramatic. It's just generally solid, I'd say. It just needed more to make it more like Thomas, I think. That's my main complaint with it. Number 6 is The Adventure Begins, and the main reason this one's kind of jumped up a bit for me is because just the others were kind of a bit worse on rewatch. This wasn't. This was kind of the same for me. Just a perfect, like, yeah. It's only 45 minutes long, so I feel like it's better at engaging me. But at the same time, why even go out of your way to watch this when all it does is just either on par or worse retellings of what happens in Season 1? You could just literally go and watch Season 1, and you'll have watched this. I don't think there's much difference, and the only difference there is, I feel like it's kind of bad. So there's not really like much of a reason to go out of your way for this one, in my opinion. It does callbacks, it has references, it very much basks in the glory of what started it all in terms of the TV show, but it doesn't raise the standard, if you will. It kind of just meets or falls below. And I feel like that's bad for something that's essentially a retelling. Like, especially the Henry stuff, that's awful. And then the climax at the end, I've always had an issue with the climax at the end. We all know why. It feels like it defeats the point of like Thomas's character arc to like mature, when he's like recklessly chasing after James, trying to stop him instead of like getting the breakdown train, being responsible. It muddies that arc for me, and I don't really appreciate what it's trying to do there. Is The Adventure Begins a good movie? Yeah. Is it worth watching if you've already watched like Season 1 of the show? Not in my opinion. I think anyone who has and really likes Season 1, they might just be a bit disappointed by what this is. Which, yeah, it's good, but could be better. So we're at the top 5 now, and number 5 is Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure. it's a really good movie. It's the most badass, I'd say. It has like explosions and shit, and like people trying to kill Thomas with like dynamite, people stealing pirate ships and treasure, and like it's very cool and very piratey, and I very much appreciate what it's trying to do there. I love the characters that get the limelight, like Marion gets some of the limelight, and the small engines that are introduced. Donald and Douglas get reintroduced as well, and that's really cool. I think Ryan's inclusion in the narrative is pretty good, as almost like this sort of, is he a nice guy or is he kind of a douche? And then we find out that he's actually just like really chill. I love how it gets down to like the nitty gritty with the Railway series lore, and it like basks in that. I think that's really fun. The one biting point I have with this, and it's the same as the one last time, I don't really like Stopper Hat's characterization all that much. I think it's very over-exaggerated. In my opinion, he's too irrational, and either that's a mischaracterization or it's just unlikable characterization. Either way, I have an issue with it, because I'm just not a big fan of when characters are sort of like unreasonable in general, which maybe is just a me thing, I don't know, but it just feels like he's very unreasonable in this one, and he's very just unwilling to hear Thomas out, and I don't understand why. Like, why it was written that way. It just, I don't know, it rubs me up the wrong way. Maybe it's just me, but it's what's keeping this bad boy at like number 5 for me. So, we still got like 4 really good movies ahead though. In number 4 is Here at the Rails. This one's took a dip. Why? It's the narration. I finally do have an issue with the narration. I think there is too much of it. I think that it really drowns out what could have been more intrigue in terms of other elements of the narrative, like dialogue, character interaction. If we had just like cut half the narration out and then like added a scene in where it was like, I don't know, just like a really interesting character dynamic or something along those lines, I think this film could have been higher. It's not though, so it's staying down here. Again, there's some rhyming bollocks in this one. Why? And I do think overall there are certain sections of the narrative where it does feel a bit too slow for me, and it kind of feels like a bit unengaging. For me, this is like a founding father of like films I watched as a child. This and like Day of the Diesels, and then like the animated BFG, and then like the Wallace and Gromit films. That's like my founding fathers of like children's entertainment. But yeah, this one really packs a punch in terms of like the emotion. It really, like, that ending, man. That ending is so brutal. Like, oh, it's so bad. Like, it's bad. No, it's like good, but it's bad because it makes me sad. It really, like, brings a tear to my eye. The music. Oh, I'm so sad. Hero's arc is beautiful, as is Thomas's throughout this film. Spencer's a great villain. The introduction of the Steamworks. One of the best, like, nitrogen decisions, in my opinion. The intro sequence, phenomenal. Just overall, what is like, there's nothing really that bad about this film in my opinion, just like the narration, which I don't think is too big of a crime. I still think it's bad, but I don't think it's enough to knock it down out of the top 5 for me. But it is 4th, and I think it's going to stay there for quite a while. Number 3, Blue Mountain Mystery. Oh, again, this was first in my like, well, technically first in the video before, and I would say it is practically perfect in every way. I do not have an issue with it, and it's not like, I don't think it's really like the fact that the narrow gauge engines have Welsh accents, or like the whole like Luke plot holes, which fair enough. It is the fact that what the fuck is Diesel doing in this narrative? It does feel just a bit out of place, and now that I'm hearing that like Duncan and Fearless Freddy were meant to be in the film but weren't, I'm starting to think that maybe they were meant to be like, or one of them was meant to be a villain, and then like they couldn't get the measurements for the basis, so they had to go with Diesel instead, which yeah, I do feel like it lets it down, because it does feel like a breakaway from everything that's happening in the Quarry, which the Quarry itself is a brilliant set because it's so big and voluminous that you really feel like even just like different sections of it feels like completely different to the section before, and it keeps like things fresh in terms of like location. So I think it does really well there. You could really tell that like Andrew Brenner had his hands on this in some way because of the way that the script was edited and the inclusion of the Annie and Clarabelle scenes. Again, Winston, not a great character in my opinion, and Merrick. I feel like they're a bit weak and they kind of let the side down in terms of new characters, but again, This one is introducing a lot of new characters, so I'm not going to bash it too much. The action in this film's great. I think the mystery element's great. Generally, the narrative is very strong, and I think it would be a 5 if it wasn't for the fact that Diesel is the antagonist, and that's I really think they're missing out on like an evil narrow gauge character there. But oh well, it's a shame, but it's like, it's not the worst it could have been. Diesel's still a decent antagonist. I just think they could have done better. And that's why this has ended up at like number 3. It's a shame because it was number 1 before, number 2. So to see it move a bit down is a bit gutting, but for me right now, that's how this feels. That's how this feels to me. So we're at the last 2, and they're both model series films. In number 2 is The Great Discovery. A brilliant film for capturing Thomas's persona and his characterization and really bringing back that like arsehole Thomas from series 2. Love that. There's a lot of whimsy with this one, just like exploring an old abandoned town that's going to get restored. Like, that's really fun. And I feel like that whole element of the narrative, it fits perfectly in with what the original vision for this series was. Stanley's a good character, never gets used again, but he's a good character. He just becomes sort of background fodder, I suppose, and he's never really seen working at the Great Waterton again, which is kind of gutting considering those two, that location and him, are very synonymous. I love how flawed Thomas is as a protagonist. It feels really like good that he is. I love the fact that there's like pretty much every model that you could use is used in this film. Like every single character, apart from like Fergus, gets used, and that's really nice because obviously Fergus got damaged during filming of season 7. Musical numbers, not the greatest, but I still think they're enjoyable enough to where I don't mind that they're not as good as they are in other films. I do just think everything in this film is at the highest quality. The sets, the models, the location, like everything, practically, narratively, everything is at such a good level of quality, but it can't clinch the win, and that's just because the first place one, as much as it's not nostalgic for me, as much as I only watched it for the first time about 3-4 years ago at this point, it hits, man. It hits so well. And that is Thomas and the Magic Railroad in number 1. Is Thomas not in the narrative as much as he should be and is like shoehorned aside for like other characters? Yeah. Is some of the acting a bit dodge? Yeah. Is there like so much cut in terms of like world building that this film makes no fucking sense? Yeah. But that kind of makes it better for me. I think if this film was perfect, then it would be lower, because what we have here is just a magical fun time that doesn't completely make sense, but has loads of effort put in. You could feel the effort put in with this one. And I don't really care what anyone says. I think that trumps anything else in this film. The fact that this one has so much heart in it, and you can tell that, and it comes through very clearly, that makes it the best for me. None of these other films, apart from like maybe 2 or 3, really gave a shit. This film gave the most shits. And even if it does make the weird magic-y shit magic, and it really just sort of collapses the idea of realism in the Thomas universe, I don't really care. I fuck with this heavy. It's such a good guilty pleasure because objectively, yeah, it's fucked up, but like subjectively, it's amazing. The soundtrack's amazing. Mr. Conductor and Junior, brilliant characters. Like Alec Baldwin and Michael E. Rogers are like working overtime to be like the entertainment of this film, and I really appreciate that. Diesel 10's such a great hammy villain. I think Lady's a brilliant character. I think like everything in terms of shining time, it's not the best and it does take away from everything, but at least it's beautiful doing it. Like a lot of this like beautiful American countryside really like comes through, and it makes this like such a more of an enjoyable experience than it would have been had it been set like, I don't know, in the middle of the city somewhere. This film got critically slammed, and it's understandable why, but for me, I think people just need to let me have this one, because goddamn do I enjoy this one a lot. But yeah, that's my list. So let me know yours in the comments below. Again, if you disagree heavily and you hate me, then that's fine. I hope you do. If you agree fully with my list, then get a life and get an opinion. This has been Peter Sam ranking some shit on another channel. Signing off. Thank you very much for watching.